I remember the first time I realized the Constitution wasn't just a document in a book. It was something people argued over, something that shaped who was protected and who wasn't. In What the Constitution Means to Me, Heidi Schreck invites us into her teenage years when she traveled the country defending the Constitution in debate halls and began asking the questions we're still asking today. Who does this document serve? Who gets to interpret it? And what does it mean to me right now? This is not a history lesson. It's funny, it's raw, it's deeply human, and it feels urgent in the world we're living in today. Join Selah Theater Project on January 22nd through the 25th at the Stone Branch Center for the Arts in Front Royal, Virginia, for What the Constitution Means to Me, a bold, intimate theatrical experience that invites all of us into the conversation. Starring Joanna Schilling, featuring Will Speakman and Naomi Greenwalt. Because the Constitution isn't finished, it's still being lived. Tickets available now at selahtheaterproject.org/mainstage. We hope to see you there.
Theater Talk, a 3-part series honoring Vivienne L. Jackson. As Selah Theater Project prepares to open its future home, the Vivienne L. Jackson Sanctuary for the Arts, Theater Talk presents a 3-part conversation series honoring the woman whose legacy inspired its name. Vivienne L. Jackson was more than a restaurant owner. Through Ruth's Tea Room, she created a sanctuary long before the word was attached to a building, one rooted in dignity, safety, community, and belonging. From 1923 until its closing in 2005, Ruth's Tea Room served as a haven for people of all walks of life during segregation and beyond. This series explores her impact through civic leadership, faith community, lived memory, and art, honoring Black history not as something past, but present and alive. Part 2, I sit with special guest Matt Harmon, who was a church and choir member with Vivienne L. Jackson, and Josh Riley, Ruth's Tea Room's historian and fundraiser. In Part 2, the conversation moves into sacred space. Matt Harmon reflects on worshiping and singing alongside Miss Vivienne at First United Methodist Church, the very sanctuary Selah Theater Project is now going to steward. Josh Riley shares firsthand memories of growing up at Ruth's Tea Room, documenting its history, and leading fundraising efforts for Miss Vivienne's retirement, offering living testimony to how one woman shaped generations. This episode asks, what does sanctuary look like when faith, food, and community intersect? This series is important because naming Selah Theater Project's future home after Miss Vivienne Jackson is not just symbolic, it is intentional. This 3-part series documents why her name belongs on the building and why Black women's leadership, care, and legacy deserve permanent, visible honor. This is not nostalgia. This is living history. This is the Sanctuary for the Arts. Hey everyone, it's Bleu Do'zia, and I am here with Matt Harmon, who I met just by accident, which seems like to be the over-occurring story of us getting into this beautiful space that we're about to get into. And I always like to say Miss Vivienne has her hands dabbling into all of it. So, Matt, would you introduce everyone to who you are and your connection to Miss V?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. So, yeah, I'm Matt Harmon, and I've lived in the Winchester area for 40 years almost, I guess. And grew up here, going to church at First United Methodist, there on Braddock Street back when Braddock Street was one way. And yeah, Miss Vivienne was always at church. I've known Vivienne for at least 35, 40 years. Um uh I was at First United Methodist Church. Gosh, we started there early 90s. And Miss Vivienne was always there. Um Late 90s, I guess, early 2000s, I did visit Ruth's tea room one time. Um, I had one of her fantastic slices of cake. I don't know how she ever did it. She used to make these phenomenal cakes. But my wife and I were married at First United Methodist Church, and after when Miss Vivienne was getting a little older, and she started needing some assistance, my mother was a good friend of hers, and a lot of the people at the church would help help her around the house and things like that. There were several times I had to go help her figure out her telephone issues and things. And when she had her dogs, because she loved her boxers, I had to had to help with those a few times. So yeah, definitely. Every holiday, every big event at the church, Miss Vivienne was there with her. She always had her hat, because she wasn't fully dressed without her hat. So, she always dressed up and always made sure to say hi, give her love to everybody. It's funny because we were just going through some things here at, getting ready for the holidays, and found the nutcracker that she had given my son. Gosh, I think he was 2 or 3. Thing's about a foot tall.
Wow.
I think we're putting it. I'm not sure where it is at this time, but yeah, she was always one of always so thoughtful and giving, and yeah, just definitely a wonderful soul.
Well, you and I really got to talking when we were going through her things that were being sold. And I just went through that box the other day with my co-actor, Joanne Thompson, and showing her all the goodies that I got, including Zeus's jar.
The Christmas ornament, yeah.
I got his ornaments and all of that fun stuff, a couple of scarves. And so you and I really got to know each other in that context. And I was being pumped with stories left and right once other people realized the playwright was there. And I was
Right,
like,
right.
no, don't fill me with more stories. I'll never stop writing this script. I'll never stop. But I love that. One of the things that I have is a hymnal that she had purchased from the church and dedicated, and her name is typed inside. Can you explain like what that is? Because not every church
Um,
does that.
yeah. So, obviously, the church was there for 120, 130 years in that location. Um, and with it being United Methodist, there's typical hymnals, hymns that you would do during typical services, kind of standardized, and that goes across any denomination. Really, those hymnals are almost interchangeable. But the sanctuary, the 80s 90s time frame, had like a reddish carpet down and things like that, and so they wanted hymnals that would kind of match, and so they had these the red hymnals to put in the pews. Obviously they were all the same, so you could,
Right.
when they say open your hymnal to page 320, it didn't matter which one you had, but obviously the cost for those things was fairly expensive. Those, like you said, you have one of those hymnals. I'm pretty sure it's probably dated in the 90s, or the 80s, could be earlier. but they definitely are a hefty investment. And so one way to give back to the church was to go ahead and dedicate one of those in someone's memory. There was I don't know if you remember all the different stained glass windows, but most of the stained glass windows were paid for
Yeah.
in the church that way as well. They had dedication plaques on them.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so they're being
Yeah.
refurbished, basically. They're being cleaned up and repaired as we speak, the stained glass
Okay.
pieces. We just finished replacing the one that's in the dome that's inside the
Oh wow.
building.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and they've just they're still painting the outer frame of them. So they have this
Okay.
beautiful, like creamy white highlighting them. And then the interior of the window is like this beautiful deep olive green. And so yeah, so we're taking really good care of all of the stained glass windows.
Wonderful.
And the owner, Richard, was that was the first thing he said, this stays, this is this has to be a thing. And we were like, yeah, duh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. Of
Those
course.
things, like I'm not sure
So
I could
we
look at that building without them. It just wouldn't be the
yeah,
same.
no, they're still there. They're now going to be brighter and even more beautiful, which I love every part of that. Um, so we actually ran into a couple of church members at Ruth's Tea Room when we did it last fall, and we were in the process of looking for a space. And I wasn't sure if we were going to keep going or not, because I was like, I'm tired of like space hopping and trying to get people to take our company seriously. And a couple of former church members came to see the show, and we had just looked at the church, but I had not filled out a LOI or anything for the church. I was still just thinking about it with my friend Joanna.
Mhm.
And Joanna was like, I'm going to do the LOI. Don't worry about it. You don't have anything to worry about. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But that night, a few of the church members, I think they took up a whole table, came to see the show. And afterwards, we had a talk back with the entire audience about what they thought about the show, but also their memories
Oh,
of that. And a group of them said, oh, yeah, well, we just sold our church that Miss Vivienne went to. And I was like, oh, yeah, really? What church? And they said First United Methodist. And Joanna looked at me and I looked at her. And Joanna said, where is this church? And they said, on Braddock Street. And we had just looked at that church. And so Joanna looked at me and she said, oh, yeah, we're definitely doing an LOI. This is definitely happening. And we did. And we submitted it to the owner, and he almost immediately said, yeah, this makes sense. And so if it wasn't for, I think, that little push at that encounter, that meeting of those church members that even said that Miss Vivienne used to sing in the choir on that pulpit. And
yeah.
if it wasn't for that push, I don't know if I would have been encouraged to really go after occupying the church at all in any
Oh,
capacity. So that's why I say I feel like Miss Vivienne's hands are all within this journey, from meeting you and meeting your mom and meeting other church members just randomly, just the most
right.
random thing ever. And you
Oh,
guys are right now in the process of breaking ground, right?
yes, it should start in the spring, I believe. Um, yeah, they're
Awesome.
building out there on Apple Pie Ridge Road. It's either spring or summer. I'm hoping it's spring because that way it'll be done faster. But that's been a long
Yeah.
time coming. Gosh, at least 15 years, if not more. Um,
Wow.
it's yeah, and this time of year always makes me a little nostalgic for the old church with like Christmas Eve service and we at the end of the service we everybody would have a candle to carry God's light out into the world, and they would dim the lights and everything, and we would sing um you know gosh, I can't even remember how many, doing it every year. And um And typically, it was Silent Night was the last one that we would sing as we're, everybody's leaving, and just a phenomenal way to end a Christmas Eve service. But no, I always think of that, and especially when I was in middle school and high school, the church always encouraged arts. We had off and on there were drama groups that we would do things kind of internally there for a service. And I remember being in middle school and Miss Vivienne, making sure that I knew that she had seen it and that she loved it every time. And she did that with everyone. If you were up there on stage, she made sure that you knew she thought you did a good job. But that was just the way she was.
I love that we are going to be in a space and have some small connection with First United Methodist Church to the congregation so that you guys always have your home base, and that Miss Vivienne's legacy gets to live on with us being an arts house, an arts sanctuary, perhaps,
Yeah.
for other artists like me that are, struggling and going back and forth and needing a home space. And I'm
Right.
so grateful at how wonderful all of you humans are. You are some of the kindest people I've ever met. Um, I just love everything about it. I'm grateful you sold your church.
On one hand, no, not thankful for that at all. But on the other hand, it was a necessity. I'm sure the new owner, I'm sure he has some stories to tell about some of the repairs. I mean, I remember seeing part of the foundation of the church, and it was stone slab, like slated.
Yeah.
um I mean, it was laid in what, 1889, I believe, 1886,
Yeah.
somewhere in there, a little before I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, my wife and I, we got married in that church. So it definitely
I love
holds
it.
a lot there. My dad was the choir director, up until, he wasn't able to in, 2012 or so when he got sick. And then my mom, took over, and she's still,
Mhm.
the director of music for First United Methodist, no matter where they are.
I love that. I love everything about it. It was designed and meant to be with all the artists in your family alone. It was just meant to be. I am so grateful to know you, Matt, and to know your mother as well, and to know your church family, and to, even though it was a hardship in which you guys sold the church, um, it is breaking ground soon in the spring for your new church, and it's providing an artistic home for this community that I think is going to be beyond any of our wildest dreams. So I'm so grateful
I
for you. Thank you so much for joining
Oh,
me.
certainly, certainly, and I'm very excited to see, what you guys are going to do in the space, because it's not massive, but it's big enough that you can get a good, decent number of people in there. But it also keeps
Oh,
anything
yeah.
on the stage, so to speak. I mean, it's intimate, it's close. You can
Yeah.
see if somebody's got a hairpiece on 3 rows back.
Yep.
It's a different type of performing space too. And it's just, I can just close my eyes. I can picture it from standing up there, up on, near the altar and everything, just looking out. Um, I mean, gosh, I was a kid in that place. I was up and down the stairs. As a teenager, I could tell you how to climb up the stairs to the balcony and which steps to, if you stepped way off to the right or to the left, because you don't want it creaking and let everybody know you're running up and down the stairs. So yeah, there used to be a way, you'd step a little, on the right on this side, and then all the way to the left on this next step. And then you stay to the left 3 more. And yeah, yeah, I spent a lot of time in that sanctuary, but it was always filled with It's going to sound generic, but it was always filled with love, and it was kindness. Was And that kind of what draws so many people in. And I mean, Miss Vivienne, that was just kind of her day to day. She was just a sweet, kind woman, and I mean, her and the church fit together well. And I'm so excited to see what you guys are going to do with the space. And as once you get settled in there and really get to creating, I can't wait to see what you guys do.
At Selah Theater, I love taking acting classes in the fall, winter, spring, and loads of camp choices in the summer. All classes, camps, and workshops are open to youth willing to learn the craft of theater, music theater, art, and production. To learn more about these awesome opportunities, check out Selah Theater's website at selahtheaterproject.org. Just click on the Classes Camp tab. Hope to see you there.
This January, Sip and Savor is pouring a fresh start. Verdi is back and the tea shop is open again, but the past didn't stay behind. With Tabitha on edge, Pumpkin trying to live out loud, and Norval still lurking like a bad aftertaste, New Leaves, New Dreams is a hilarious, heartfelt episode about starting over, even when you're not sure you're ready. Join us for a live 30-minute episodic theater inside your favorite coffee house, where the stories are up close, the laughs are real, and every cup comes with a little courage. Sip and Savor, Episode 7, New Leaves, New Dreams. One night only on Friday, January 30th at 6 p.m. There's limited seating at the Hideaway Cafe, which is located at 141 South Loudon Street in Winchester. Get your tickets now and come sip something new. Remember, what spills here stays here. Hey, everybody, I'm here with someone I'm so honored to have met and to get to know and to form a bond over the infamous Ruth's Tea Room, as well as Miss Vivienne Jackson, and that is Josh Riley. Josh, I'm so grateful that you're joining us right now to talk a little bit about Miss V and about Ruth's Tea Room. So first, introduce yourself and how long you have known Miss Vivienne.
Thanks for inviting me. My name is Josh Riley. I'm a Winchester native. I think the first time I went to Ruth's Tea Room was maybe 1990. Sometime around in there, I was introduced to the place by my sister, who used to go, and she was 4 years ahead of me at Hanley. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And then once I was probably a junior and a senior at Hanley, I went all the time. And
Wow.
There was a crew of us who were there all the time, and of course got to know Vivienne. And then I kept going back. I would come home for breaks from college and really kind of followed along for the rest of the time that the tea room was open, although certainly closer to the end, I was not there that much because I wasn't really in Winchester that much. But so it was a long time.
So you have a connection with Miss Vivienne that I've only seen through you. I've heard stories and I've seen folks that have, or met folks that have known Miss Vivienne or known about the tea room, but I kind of call you like our little historian for the tea room and about Miss Vivienne. So even though you weren't there closer to the end, can you let us know a little bit about who Miss V was to you in your life, and what did Ruth's Tea Room mean to you?
Sure. I mean, I know that lots of people have used this term, but to me, Ruth's Tea Room was really a sanctuary. as a queer kid growing up in Winchester in the 80s and 90s with all the stigma and silence that surrounded that at that time, which I think maybe people in the present have a hard time imagining. Ruth's Tea Room was just this incredible safe place to be whoever you wanted to be, which, in my case was like a theater kid and kind of a dork and the sort of ragtag bunch of people who were there at that time were all like me, maybe felt a little othered or not really outcast because I did all right in school. I had friends or whatever, but like it was just a place to feel really safe and at that time maybe to feel like we weren't in Winchester. I don't, Winchester's great or good enough now. I don't mind being here now, but at that time it was such a time stood still there and Vivienne was a huge part of that. I mean, a lot of people probably speak about kind of how she was. She required manners and take your hat off and, behave yourself. But I think we understood then what a special place it was. And so people really obeyed her, and she was sort of a kindly grandmother type. And then there were people who would come in to the tea room and sit in the special chair right outside the kitchen. And those were people who had really long-standing, obviously really cherished relationships with her. I mean, so I got to know Vivienne again later in her life, after the tea room had closed. So I was part of a small group of people who kind of provided care and came up with support ideas, and we did fundraising and stuff to try to keep her going later into her life, which was also really an amazing blessing to be able to do that. But so, I recognize that like I was only there for a brief period of time and she had some real dear, deep friendships with people who were her confidants forever, many of whom were gay or seemed gay. And I just remember what an impact that made on me, and it's hard to explain, but, pre-internet, was like your antenna were up. Like, who are the people? Where are my people? Where do I see myself reflected? And there would be people who would come into the tea room who were really close to her. And in a way, I think that made us all feel safer because she wasn't just performing a kind of, this is a cool place to come hang out. She really lived it with the people who were in her social circle and sort of her closest people. But anyway, maybe I lost track of your question. The tea room was a sanctuary. It was also a really cool place. It also felt like a secret hideaway a little bit. Sometimes it felt like a little bit of a transgression because you're there and you're up late and you're, not in the best neighborhood, and listening to old records on a, analog jukebox. I mean, there were just ways in which the place kind of took you out of where you were. That red flocked wallpaper made it look like a little bit of a house of ill repute, maybe. And you weren't sure if maybe there'd been a speakeasy in there at some point. I mean, given the many, many years that it existed, you could sort of imagine or project whatever kind of interesting clandestine history, and after Vivienne passed and, I had the opportunity to go through all of her photographs and things and just seeing some of the incredible characters there that were there throughout the years. Probably not even anybody famous, although there probably were famous people in the pictures I didn't recognize, but just, it was clear that it was a sanctuary for the entirety of its time,
Yeah.
And initially that was really probably a sanctuary for people of color and a sanctuary where people of color and white people could intermingle in a way that was not permitted. I know, and everybody knows there were two entrances and there was a black entrance and a white entrance. And, but that idea of it being a safe place for a long time for a lot of different people, is what made the place so special.
I heard a lot from, there was one particular group when we did Ruth's Tea Room the second time. And there was one particular group of, I call them young women because they turned into teenagers again. And they flew in and drove in just to meet up for this play. And when we did our talk back, the first thing they said was, when they heard her bangles on Joanne that played Miss V, they were like, oh, here she comes, here she comes, here she comes. And for a slight moment, they forgot that she had already passed.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Just from that sound of the bangles backstage.
it's funny
Which
that
is
you say that, because I was thinking about that the other day. I was driving past Kay's house. Kay was another person who was very involved with caregiving to Vivienne, who also passed
right.
just a few months ago. And I need to reach out to Kay's sister and figure out, because there's some relics and tea room things there at her house that I want to make sure get preserved. And but I was thinking about the bracelet specifically, and I was like, we got to make sure those end up somewhere. I have big dreams of, like, this should be a display at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley for a while, so people really can know this history. And certainly, having gone through Vivienne's entire household after she passed away with Kay, we found some just incredible pieces. I mean, there were receipts back from, like, oil deliveries in 1930. I mean, they kept
Whoa.
everything, and we did not keep everything, but we kept a lot of things that were just important relics from the tea room history. But yeah, I think about, like, she always had a boxer, a dog, and so the idea of, like, the sound of a dog collar and the bangles that she wore, absolutely. And yeah, seeing Joanne as her, be her, channel her was really something special.
Yeah, the first time we did it, it was under commission from the city. And Miss V, actually, she got to see it. And she couldn't hear it all the way, but so we sent her home with the script. But she got to see it. And her friends, Miss K included, flew to Joanne after the show because they were like, you look just like her at this age.
Yeah,
Like
it was
that.
eerie. It was
That's
eerie.
pretty eerie. And so it was kind of the same kind of feedback that we got from a lot of audience members that saw it the second time. And it's amazing how I met her. The first time I met her would have been in 2009. I did a piece at the Civil War Museum, and it was a theatrical piece, and she was there with another friend. It wasn't Miss K. I can't remember her friend's name, but she came up to me afterwards, and I spent about 45 minutes with her after the show just talking to her, and I fell in love with her immediately. And she had told me about Ruth's Tea Room. And so I started asking people around town that were natives about Ruth's Tea Room. So I had this collection of stories that I had heard from the queer community, the Black community, the white community, just about this one woman and this one tea room. And so when the city approached me about writing a piece about a strong Black woman, I was like, oh, I have this piece, but it's not all put together. And I immediately thought of her and the history that she carries and the legacy that she carries. Did Miss Vivienne have any children?
No, not that we know of. I'm not even sure she had any really great loves, although we certainly ran across letters, quite a number of letters of men, like, really fawning over her, really kind of
She was a
begging her
beautiful woman.
to, like, be with them. And it reflects a kind of aloofness, I think, that I always felt about Vivienne. And I not that I thought she was ever rude, but just a certain, I mean, in some ways it was almost mystical, but, like, the people she was really close to, she was really close to. And everybody else, I think she kind of kept you guessing a little bit. I mean, yeah, I don't, a little bit of a cool aloofness, but I mean, she was a warm person, but there was something about kind of not able to get too close to her. But no, I remember in high school there was a young woman who would come and visit her a lot, and I think for a while I thought that maybe that was a daughter, but no, she did not have any children.
Wow.
I don't think she married. I mean, we got to see family members. There were so many letters in her belongings, and so we kept all of them. She had a brother who ended up in San Francisco, who had children, I believe. And there were other kind of in-laws. Some of her people had been in Pennsylvania originally, but surprisingly, not a lot of really close connections to family, at least. later into her life that we could determine.
Gotcha.
But so many friends and people who'd come to the tea room, and um, I think about the way that the piece has developed that you wrote over the times I've seen it, and just the way you've been able to capture kind of the intersections of the different communities of people who came together
Right.
in that place is pretty remarkable. And to honor her with a theatrical space is pretty incredible, because that was a lot of who came. I can remember groups of people coming in late at night after shows were over at the Wayside Theater or the
Wow.
Little Theater or Shenandoah. And
Wow.
so I think about the transient actors who came and went from the different repertory companies in the area, or the Summer Music Theater, and they got, whispers about this amazing secret place you need to go and hang out. And I mean, you have collected so many stories, and it makes me think about like the so many, 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 many more that there
Right.
should be collected, of so many other people who've come before. But the idea of a performance space that is, in her name just seems so appropriate in terms of the people who were drawn to the tea room over the years. And this is a random memory, but I can remember seeing, like, in the back of my father's Hanleyan, the Hanley yearbook, like an ad for Ruth's Tea Room. And lots of local businesses used to take ads out in the back of the yearbook. I don't know if they still do that, but they did it then. And it was a very simple ad. And my dad's brother and I were talking about it, and he had said that he had gone a couple of times, when he was younger, but he felt like it was like a special place that maybe not just anybody can walk into and go to. And
Oh,
I also
wow.
love the idea that sort of mystique, which also probably was rooted in some stigma, right? Maybe prejudice. It was a black spot.
Mm-hmm.
So there may have been ways in which that got communicated to white people, certainly, as like, this is not your turf, which I think is fine, but I don't know how much of it was sort of this mystique that has always accompanied that space, and how much of it was maybe a little more small-mindedness long ago. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
what I know for sure is that the right people found it and found a home there for however long they went.
I love that. Our goal is to be that home, maybe not serving tea, but maybe Hershey Kisses.
Sure.
But yeah, it's to become that home, but for artists and for community alike. There's nothing like what we do in the area, as far as the community awareness and the outreach and the connection and the stories that we tell as well. And I love finding stories. I am still writing. Like, this piece is not done, I feel. Because even when we went to her estate sale, there were people there that were like, "Oh, you're the playwright. Let me tell you this story." So I was like, "Oh." So it was like more and more stories. Even at her funeral, there were more and more stories that came that were just fascinating about this one place in history. And I saw that even Williamsburg has a write-up about her space as part of the anthropology of Black businesses that they have researched in the state of
Oh,
Virginia. So it's even beyond
yeah.
our community here.
I don't know if that's the like archive of the Green Book or whatever, but I've reached out to them to say, hey, I'm associated with this place and I have a lot of pictures and other things, and I haven't followed up with them, but it's my intention to like scan things and send it in. And
Yeah.
because it's just remarkable that exists. And we
Yes.
found a Green Book in Vivienne's belongings that was from maybe the second to last year that it was published. I can't remember when exactly that was, but maybe the late 60s. And there was Ruth's Tea Room, it was the one listing. Maybe there was another one, maybe a sort of a boarding house or like a hotel kind of thing. But, it's just remarkable to think about who may have passed through those doors, who
Mm-hmm.
really needed a place like that. I think of it from my perspective as a queer person in the present, but I think about all of the other people who maybe passed through Winchester and needed a safe place to be, and that got to be that for them. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, for the second production that we did, we had people flying in to see the show. And that just kind of blew my mind. So her reach is far beyond this community and Winchester, to the point where people are coming. We had people coming in from Georgia. We had people coming down from West Virginia. We had a group that did a little reunion from Shepherdstown, because apparently when they were girls in college, they would drive all the way down to Winchester to Ruth's Tea Room because that was the only safe place for them to go to.
That doesn't surprise
And so
me.
they did like a mini reunion and met in Shepherdstown and then drove down to see the play like old times. So it's so cool. And I hope that one day when I'm gone, that is the legacy that I'll be able to have as well. Because
I
this
think
woman is,
you can claim a little of that legacy already, given the kind of community that you create. I mean, the people who are, involved in the work that you do are obviously so committed and devoted.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that they're going to have, and that you're going to have, a whole home to be able to do that in a more permanent way. Although the season this year is remarkable to me. All of the
thank you.
the wagon training that you're doing around town, it's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
It sounds a little exhausting, to be honest. So I'm
It
sure
is
you'll be really
so
glad
exhausting.
to
It's
park
so
it in a
exhausting.
pew when you get the opportunity to.
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready to park in a pew, and we're almost there. So,
That's great.
So thank you, Josh, so much for spending some time with me and
Of course.
for talking a little bit more about Miss Vivienne and Ruth's Tea Room. I appreciate you so much.
So great to be able to spend some time with you and talk about her. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Vivienne L. Jackson Sanctuary for the Arts is more than a venue. It's a promise. A promise to artists who've never felt welcome. A promise to young people discovering their voice. A promise to our community that art belongs to everyone. As the new home of Selah Theater Project, this sanctuary will host performances, classes, community gatherings, and stories that challenge, heal, and connect us. But we can't do this without you. Your donation through GiveButter directly supports renovations, programming, and sustainability, ensuring this space remains accessible, inclusive, and alive for generations to come. Help us build a home where stories find sanctuary. Give today at givebutter.com/sanctuary for the arts.
Thank you for listening to Theater Talk. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, share this episode, and continue to dialogue with us. These conversations matter because memory matters, and because the spaces we build say everything about who we choose to honor. Until next time, may you find sanctuary in art, community in story, and courage in your voice. As always, remember, art doesn't ask for permission. Art speaks unapologetically. Until next time.